After our last presentation to you, we wanted to further our investigations into weird and eerie associations with having your bike stolen. And we thought that these exist because of the emotional connection between people and their bikes, which is something that we touched on in our previous explorations and have continued since. It was also our aim to figure out how superstition fits into these themes. To define the scope of this direction, we formed an emotional journey, starting with the building a relationship between a cyclist and their bike, then moving to a state of anxiety and precautious behaviours out of fear that your bike will be stolen, and then transitioning into a last phase in which they must navigate the grief and the mourning of their stolen bike. We have imagined a different London, a speculative reality in which the culture of the city is bike-centric. Cycling is the most popular form of transport and bikes dominate the roads. There are few cars other than delivery vehicles and public buses. Advertising, media and entertainment is saturated with bike-related content. Top Gear still exists, but the content is very different. And bike theft is still prevalent, but the emotional blow is more tragic.
It is our thinking that the initial bond formed between people and their bicycles is so strong because a bicycle is an extension of one's body. Marshall McLuhan, in addressing the relationship between object and man, believes that body extension is a technological simulation of aspects of our physicality, our consciousness, and our central nervous system being projected into the global sphere. A bike extends the body fully. It allows you to move faster, travel further. The wider world is therefore more attainable. This is a reflection of the 21st century attitude within a globalized world. Knowledge and one another becoming more and more easily accessible through digital means. This access the bike gives you, that freedom, becomes a mentality. It gives a rider an attitude of liberated possibilities and self-reliance or confidence, as the bike extension is self-generated. The bike is not a digital technology. It extends you as you enable it, as you power it, and as you breathe life into it. The bike and its rider are therefore understandably connected and symbiotic both physically and emotionally. One's bicycle stolen could therefore easily be comparable to the loss of a limb, a loved one, or a close friend.
Through experimenting with how bodies can be manipulated into the positions taken when riding a bicycle, we constructed these objects with the intention of isolating particular actions made while riding a bike. Originally, we thought that these objects could be purposed as empathy-building objects, giving insight into what cycling is physically like, and if that can artificially produce the same connected experience that cyclists have with real bicycles. In documenting our second iterations, we produced this stylized video. This was when we found what we thought to be where these objects could be situated within the speculated London we'd imagined. We played with the notion that these objects could be used by those who have had their bikes stolen to help them reconnect with the ghosts of their lost bikes as a sort of grief therapy. We imagine this to be facilitated under conditions similar to those found in our video, a darkened room, isolated and quiet, maybe listening to an additional soundtrack of familiar bike sounds. We have narrated examples of the type of experience we believe will be had.
What guides your journey? You close your eyes, the room is dark, you hold on to the rotating device. You're once again intimate with the movement, reconnected with a lost love. You can remember your journeys and the places you've been. How does it feel to be gliding, whizzing through the streets in between cars? Your turning device allows any space to become a place of free movement, a place that was once free from movement.
Your back is arched, stretched, aerodynamic. You can almost feel the wind blowing against you. The posture device contort your body, enacting the motion. Positioning transports you to your love. Your love is a feeling, an object, the connection.
The stepping device simulates the feeling of conformed foot and pedal relationship. It heightens your interaction, understanding of the rigorous conformity of a bike. You miss the feeling of rotating your legs round and around, the perfect bend of the leg, optimizing your journey. You have a symbiotic relationship with your bike that you can now remember just for a minute. You are once again in memory.
From our research, we understand that superstitions are interconnected with memories, and that both of these elements can be derived from and are produced by storytelling of a particular nature. Stories that feature the unintended consequences of a character's naive or ignorant or immoral behaviours do particularly well to ingrain a moral code in an audience that, through reinforcement via the memory of the story, can evolve into a superstition. Once this relationship has been established, the story, the memory of it, and the superstition become interwoven and almost perpetual in their sustaining of one another by word of mouth and the nature of oral storytelling. The impact that superstitions can have on our lives can appear minimal. However, they can influence our responsive behaviours and our decision making in situations. In the best of circumstances, this is a positive feedback loop that reminds us and prevents us from making errors similar to the characters that we have learned from.
Bike thief is less random than it may appear. There are specific conditions under which thieves become more or less common. We utilize available data to understand these conditions, and it was our thinking that we could produce poetry that would improve awareness of the best way to keep your bike from being taken. By softening the data makes it more accessible to the public, and they would resultantly become better informed.
The tragedy strikes in the summertime. Keepers are like sheep, feeling safer when gathered, coldening their locks. And the coldness gets warmer as it goes into the centre. In the heart of the heat, dark ones evaporate into thin air. The owner of the vapour goes through a stage of grief, but the taker never seems to get caught. Only the little come back to its keeper. The bond evaporates, perishes, and vanishes. This tragedy keeps happening every 90 seconds, even at this moment. The deep sorrow of the deprived turns into a curse. So long live this, and this gives life to thee.
The poem is a parody of Shakespeare's Sonnet 18, chosen as it begins with the line, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" The quote being relevant in the context of a piece of data we found that states that more bikes are stolen in summer than any other time of year. The following lines have been changed to reference other data sets. Annotations attached explain the data in more detail. Within our speculated city, we imagine the education of children to also feature bike-related content, not necessarily as an overt part of the curriculum, but as a subtle theme that appears in various contexts throughout primary education. It's our understanding that at this young age, instilling information, habits, and possibly superstitions are more likely to stick, changing the future behaviours and creating a safe society in the long run, ingraining good cycling habits, etiquette, decreasing bicycle theft. Using open source data about the various conditions under which bicycles are more likely to be stolen, we have produced literary content in addition to the poem we initially wrote, to be embedded within primary education.
Float against a railing, eyes are always watching. Didn't stop them, take it, where's my bike? Family left her by my own, so easy to steal, no trouble at all. She told the police, but it was in vain. She never saw her bike again. It's raining, it's pouring, the cyclists still rode in. They went to bed, their saddles were wet, but their bikes were still there in the morning.
By implementing these data-informed urban mythologies, of which these would only be the beginning, the result should be that these statistical realities become ingrained in the minds of young people as subconscious superstitions. Data depicted through literature in this way allows for constant evolution to illustrate the issues of the time within the speculative city, enabling the text to contort to data and for the context to be made more appropriate to the times as possible. The content can be updated and rewritten in a cyclical process, with the content existing in a semi-set state.
We have attempted to flesh out two parts of a speculative London, imagining a city that's culture could be bike-centric, specifically how the theft of a bike could be managed by its owner, what the grieving process could entail, and how the data could inform the education of a general public and at an early age instill superstition that could condition behaviours in response to the ingrained memories of potential risk and the need for precautions.